What if the reason your life feels heavy isn't because you've lost your power, but because you've been trying to live without your crown? What if the world keeps testing you, not to break you, but to ask, do you remember who you are? You were never meant to be ordinary. You were meant to rise, to lead, to reign, not over others, but over yourself. There comes a time in every woman's life when she stops looking for the crown in someone else's hands. She stops searching for approval, applause, or recognition from a world that never truly saw her. And in that quiet space, where she finally grows tired of waiting to be chosen, something miraculous happens. She remembers that she was never meant to be chosen. She was meant to choose herself. The forgotten crown, it isn't lost. It's only buried under years of self-doubt, heartbreak, and trying too hard to be what others wanted you to be. You may have felt its weight before, that strange ache in your chest when you knew you were meant for more than the life you were settling for. It was there when you silenced your voice to keep the peace, when you dimmed your light so others wouldn't feel small beside you. But the crown didn't vanish. It simply waited, patiently, quietly, until you were ready to wear it again. When you finally understand that no one is coming to rescue you, it isn't sadness that fills your heart, it's freedom. Because the greatest rescue is not from others, but from the illusion that you ever needed saving. You were never helpless, you were only hidden, covered beneath layers of expectations, fear, and conditioning that taught you to believe your worth depended on someone else's approval. Yet, true power was never external. It lived in the stillness of your own awareness, waiting to be remembered. There's a beauty in realizing that nothing you lost was ever meant to define you. Not the job, not the relationship, not the validation that used to fill your emptiness. Every ending carved out space for your becoming. The moments that broke you open were not punishments, they were initiations. A queen doesn't rise because the world gives her a throne. She rises because her spirit refuses to remain on her knees. When you wear your crown again, it doesn't make you better than others. It makes you aligned with your truest self. It means you no longer shrink when you enter a room. You no longer apologize for the power in your voice or the softness in your heart. You no longer chase because you've remembered that what's meant for you doesn't need to be forced. It will flow toward you, drawn by the gravity of your self-respect. There is a kind of quiet strength that comes when you realize your value isn't negotiable. It's not a tone you use or a mask you wear. It's an energy that radiates from within. The energy of a woman who knows who she is. And it's not loud. It's not desperate. It's calm, like the ocean that doesn't need to explain its depth. When you begin to live like that, you stop competing, you stop comparing your life to others who seem happier, wealthier, or more admired, because you realize a queen doesn't compete. She commands, and her command isn't about control, it's about presence. The power of her being transforms the space she enters, not because she demands attention, but because her peace cannot be ignored. To carry that kind of presence requires you to be anchored in truth. You can no longer afford to seek your worth in the reflection of others' eyes. When you depend on others to tell you who you are, you will always be at the mercy of their moods. But when you know yourself deeply, unapologetically, you become unshakable. Their praise no longer inflates you, and their criticism no longer breaks you. You remain steady, because your roots run inward, not outward. There's a subtle but sacred transformation that happens when you begin to own your energy. You no longer chase what's fading. You no longer beg to be seen. You simply air. You show up with quiet certainty, knowing that your energy will either attract or repel what aligns with you. And in that knowing, you finally make peace with the truth. You don't need to fight for what's meant for you. Your royal nature was never about dominance, it was always about discernment. You can walk among chaos and not absorb it. You can see through manipulation and not engage with it. You can love deeply without losing yourself. This is the strength of the feminine soul, resilient yet fluid, fierce yet gentle, grounded yet uncontainable. When you return to this knowing, you realize that power has nothing to do with control. It has everything to do with freedom. Freedom from the fear of being misunderstood. Freedom from the need to perform. Freedom from the exhausting habit of overgiving just to be loved. The moment you stop needing others to see your worth, you become luminous, glowing not because you want attention, but because you've made peace with yourself. And this peace changes everything. It makes your presence magnetic, not because of what you wear or say, but because you radiate something rare: authenticity. You move differently when you're no longer performing. You speak with grace instead of defense. You walk with ease instead of hurry. And suddenly, people feel it. They feel the quiet confidence of someone who has nothing to prove and everything to express. This is when you stop asking for permission. You stop asking, is it okay for me to be this strong, this loud, this soft, this sure? Because the truth is, you were never meant to fit into their definition of acceptable. You were meant to redefine it. Every time you wait for approval, you place your power in someone else's hands. But when you claim your decisions as your own, when you say, this is what I want, this is what I believe, this is who I am, you rise. To act like the queen you already are means to stop apologizing for existing fully, for dreaming boldly, for feeling deeply. You were not born to be easy to handle. You were born to be real. And realness is rarely convenient. It shakes foundations. It makes people uncomfortable. But it also awakens others to their own truth. You were born to be that mirror. A reminder that authenticity is the highest form of beauty. You must learn to stop asking small questions like, will they like me? And start asking powerful ones like, does this align with my spirit? Because when you live from alignment, not approval, you begin to walk the earth with the quiet assurance of someone who knows she belongs. Not because she earned it, but because she is it. Every time you hesitate to speak your truth, remember this. You were not created to blend in. Your voice, your presence, your essence, they are instruments of awakening. The world doesn't need another imitation, it needs your originality. And that requires courage. The courage to disappoint people who never understood you. The courage to lose comfort in order to find peace. The courage to stand tall, even when it feels easier to bow. And yet, every time you choose yourself, truly choose yourself, something magical unfolds. Life begins to align with your energy. Opportunities flow that were once blocked. Relationships deepen that once felt shallow. Because the universe doesn't reward pretending, it responds to authenticity. So ask yourself right here, right now, what crown have I placed in someone else's hands? What part of me have I hidden in fear of rejection? And more importantly, what would happen if I stopped waiting for permission to shine? The moment you stop asking for the world's validation and start validating yourself, you will feel something extraordinary. Peace. And peace is not passive. It's power in its purest form. It's knowing that no matter what happens, you remain whole, you remain worthy, you remain anew. You are not the echo of others' opinions. You are the voice of your own becoming. Every time you stand in truth, even trembling, you strengthen the crown that was always yours. And every time you betray yourself for acceptance, it slips a little further away. But here's the beautiful thing. No matter how far it falls, it can always be reclaimed, because your crown was never lost, only forgotten. And every breath you take in remembrance of your worth, every step you take toward your own truth, every no you say to what dishonors your peace, it all becomes part of your coronation. You are the queen of your own becoming. The crown is not a reward for perfection, it's the recognition of presence. It is not given when the world approves, but when your soul whispers, I am ready. And maybe, just maybe, that readiness begins not in grandeur, but in stillness, in that quiet moment when you finally stop waiting to be crowned and start walking as though the crown has always been yours. Because it has. And it always will be. There is a weight that comes with remembering who you are, not the kind of weight that burdens you, but one that grounds you. The crown you carry isn't made of gold and jewels, it's made of responsibility, awareness, and truth. It's heavy because it reminds you that you were never meant to drift through life unconsciously. To wear your crown means to carry yourself with the dignity of someone who knows that her words, her silence, her choices, they all shape the kingdom of her life. Power has never been about dominance, it's about accountability. The more aware you become of your inner strength, the more gently you must learn to use it. True power is quiet, controlled, rooted. It's knowing that you don't have to raise your voice to be heard, because your energy already speaks for you. It's realizing that every reaction, every decision, every boundary you uphold is a reflection of your inner state. And that is where the real work begins, not in trying to control the outer world, but in mastering the one within. To carry your crown well, you must first learn to bear its weight. That means facing the uncomfortable truths within you, the insecurities, the old wounds, the stories you keep repeating because they make you feel safe in your pain. The crown reminds you that healing isn't an escape, it's a reckoning. You cannot lead yourself toward peace while hiding from the parts of you that ache for acknowledgement. So, you must learn to sit with your discomfort, not as a victim of it, but as a witness. That is how a woman becomes unshakable. Not by avoiding the storm, but by learning how to breathe through the thunder. And when you realize this, something profound happens. You stop blaming others for how they treat you. You stop expecting the world to handle you gently, because you finally understand that your power was never meant to be coddled. It was meant to be acclaimed. The crown is heavy because it carries your evolution. Every scar you bear, every time you've had to rebuild yourself from ashes, has shaped the way it fits your head. It's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be sacred. But sacredness requires space. And space can only exist when you have boundaries. Boundaries are not punishment. They are protection. They are the walls that keep your energy from spilling into places that do not honor it. Without them, your spirit leaks into everything. Into people who drain you, into battles that don't deserve your attention, into cycles that keep you small. To protect your peace, you must learn where you end and the world begins. There is beauty in realizing that boundaries are not barriers. They do not close your heart, they clarify it. They teach others how to love you without harming you, and they teach you how to honor yourself without guilt. The moment you set a boundary, you are not being unkind, you are being clear. Clarity is love in its purest form. It says, Ekenti, I will meet you here, but I will not lose myself to keep you comfortable. And boundaries are energetic language. You don't even have to announce them. When your energy changes, the people who are not aligned with your new vibration will feel it. Some will resist, some will leave. But those who are meant for you will adjust because they can sense the authenticity behind your transformation. You will start to notice who respects your peace and who only craves your chaos. And that awareness is freedom. Many people fear setting boundaries because they are afraid to lose love. But the truth is, what you lose through boundaries was never love. It was attachment. Real love honors your wholeness. It never asks you to shrink. The ones who truly value you will not be offended by your boundaries. They will feel safer because of them. They will recognize that your self-respect is not a wall. It's an invitation to something deeper, more grounded, more real. When you live without boundaries, you invite confusion. When you live with them, you invite peace. Peace that doesn't need explanation. Peace that doesn't depend on others behaving the way you want them to. Peace that simply exists because you've chosen it. A queen who knows her boundaries does not fear solitude. She understands that sometimes, in order to preserve her peace, she must let silence become her sanctuary. And this brings us to something even more powerful, the art of walking away. Walking away is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the recognition that not every battle deserves your energy, not every connection deserves your loyalty, and not every opportunity aligns with your soul. There's strength in knowing when to stay and courage in knowing when to leave. The act of walking away isn't about pride, it's about preservation. It's the sacred decision to no longer participate in what diminishes you. When you walk away, you reclaim your energy from situations that thrive on your confusion. You stop trying to convince people to see your worth and start seeing it yourself. You stop negotiating for peace and start living in it. There will be moments when walking away feels like a death, and in many ways, it is you are saying goodbye to a version of yourself that needed validation, that tolerated disrespect, that mistook suffering for love. But on the other side of that death is resurrection. The woman who rises from what she walked away from is never the same. She's softer, yet stronger, calmer, yet more powerful, wiser, yet more open to life. When you walk away from chaos, the silence that follows can feel deafening. But that silence is not emptiness, it is space. Space for you to breathe again. Space to listen to the whisper of your intuition that you've been ignoring. Space to rebuild your energy, so that when you return to the world, you do so from overflow, not depletion. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing. No reaction, no explanation, no chase. Silence is not surrender, it's sovereignty. When you stop responding to disrespect, you teach the world that your energy is not for sale. You become a mirror, reflecting back to others their own behavior without absorbing it. That is the essence of emotional mastery. And perhaps the hardest lesson of all is learning that you don't need closure from others. The moment you walk away is the closure. The silence that follows is the healing. You don't need their apology to move on. You only need your own permission to let go. Closure doesn't come from understanding why they hurt you. It comes from realizing you don't need to carry the hurt anymore. As you evolve, you'll start to notice how your standards change. Not out of arrogance, but out of clarity. You'll stop chasing potential and start honoring consistency. You'll stop mistaking intensity for intimacy. You'll start understanding that peace is not boring. It's rare and it's sacred. The more peaceful you become, the less access chaos will have to you. In this stillness, you begin to understand something sacred about your journey. That walking away isn't about loss, it's about alignment. The universe never removes something from your life without preparing space for something greater. But that greater can only arrive when your hands are empty, when your heart is no longer clinging to what's expired. To walk away is to say, I trust that there is something beyond this. It's to affirm that your peace is worth more than your pride, that your self-respect is more valuable than their validation. You are not abandoning anything. You are ascending. You are choosing growth over comfort, evolution over attachment, destiny over history. And when you make peace with that kind of choice, you stop fearing the endings. You begin to understand that endings are not failures. They are clearings. Every goodbye is an opening disguised as loss. Every closed door is an invitation to turn inward and find your own key. The strength to walk away is not born from hardness. It is born from wisdom, the wisdom that knows your worth, your peace, your purpose. So, when you feel the heaviness of your crown, remember it was never meant to crush you. It was meant to awaken you, to remind you that your power is sacred and your peace non-negotiable. The crown becomes lighter each time you honor your boundaries, each time you choose silence over reaction, each time you walk away with grace instead of resentment. This is the quiet majesty of a woman who has returned to herself. The world may not always understand her, but she no longer needs it to. She moves with intention, speaks with clarity, and lies with peace. Her power doesn't shout. It hums. It resonates through her presence, through the way she carries herself, through the calm in her eyes that says, I remember who I am. And that remembrance, that unshakable awareness of your own worth, is the essence of becoming. You are not just wearing a crown, you are embodying it. Every time you rise from what was meant to destroy you, every time you choose peace over validation, every time you walk away from what no longer serves your spirit, you polish your crown with wisdom. So walk softly, but with strength. Set your boundaries like sacred gates. Carry your crown, not with arrogance, but with grace. And when life asks you to choose between comfort and peace, always choose the one that makes your soul feel like home. Because that is where your true reign begins. Not in control, not in dominance, but in the quiet certainty that no matter where you stand, you are already enough. Every relationship in your life is a mirror, quietly reflecting back to you what you believe about yourself. The way others treat you is not always a measure of their love. Often it is a reflection of the love you have not yet learned to give yourself. That is why self-worth is not a concept you can merely understand. It is a truth you must embody. When you have forgotten your value, you begin to accept things that don't align with your spirit. You start making excuses for neglect, romanticizing inconsistency, and calling it patience. You tolerate words that bruise your peace and tell yourself it's love. But love without respect is not love. It is longing dressed as devotion, and longing can keep you trapped in illusions for years, mistaking emptiness for connection. The truth is, people can only meet you as deeply as they have met themselves. When you seek your worth in their validation, you give them the authority to define you, and they will always define you through the lens of their own limitations. That's why healing your self-worth is not about demanding more from others, but expecting more from yourself, expecting that you will no longer abandon your needs to make someone else comfortable, expecting that you will no longer shrink your power to protect someone's ego, expecting that you will no longer betray your truth just to be loved. To love yourself is to remember that you are the source, not the supplement. You are not someone's afterthought, convenience, or escape. You are a reflection of divine intention, breathing proof that you were created with purpose. When you stand in that truth, you stop begging for love, because you realize that love flows naturally to those who have learned to become it. And it's in that realization that something magical happens. You begin to enjoy your own company. You stop fearing solitude, because you finally understand that being alone is not the same as being lonely. Solitude becomes your sanctuary, a sacred space where you rediscover your rhythm, where you hear your own thoughts without the noise of others' expectations. There is a kind of peace that only reveals itself when the world grows quiet. In that silence, you begin to recognize the voice of your intuition. Soft, patient, wise. It whispers truths that the noise has drowned out for years. And you are enough, you always have been, and you don't need to chase what already belongs to your soul. Solitude teaches you the art of self-intimacy. It allows you to meet yourself beyond your roles, beyond being someone's partner, friend, parent, or colleague. It's where you strip away the masks you wear to be accepted and stand bare in your truth. It can be terrifying at first to sit in silence with yourself, because silence doesn't lie. It mirrors everything you've been avoiding. But it is also the place where real transformation begins. When you stop running from yourself, you start running toward your becoming. You realize that the loneliness you once feared is actually space, fertile ground for growth, creativity, and awakening. You begin to fill that space not with distractions, but with presence. You learn to enjoy your own laughter, your own stillness, your own company. You no longer seek to be completed by another, because you have become whole within yourself. And from that wholeness, your relationships begin to change. You no longer connect from need, but from overflow. You stop saying yes to things that drain you and start saying no with love and conviction. You start to see that not everyone deserves access to your peace. You begin to understand that you can love people deeply and still choose yourself. This balance between softness and strength is where your true power lives. You are not meant to be hard to prove your strength, nor soft to prove your love. You are meant to be both. You can be gentle without being fragile, fierce without being harsh, loving without being naive. Real power lies in the balance, in knowing when to open your heart and when to guard your peace. To be soft is not to be weak. It takes courage to remain kind in a world that often rewards hardness. It takes strength to show compassion when you could easily close off. There is something profoundly regal about a woman who knows how to stay open without losing herself, who can nurture others without neglecting her own soul. Strength without softness becomes cold. Softness without strength becomes lost. But when you weave the two together, you create harmony. You become a force of nature, calm yet commanding, tender yet unstoppable. You stop needing to prove your worth through struggle, and instead embody it through presence. This balance is what gives you your quiet authority. When you walk into a room, you don't demand attention, you draw it. Not because you are loud, but because you are aligned. Your energy becomes magnetic. Not because you are trying to impress, but because you are deeply at peace with who you are. That peace is what others feel. That peace is what they are drawn to. It's the same peace that allows you to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve freedom. It's the same peace that lets you speak your truth calmly, without needing to be understood. It's the same peace that keeps you grounded when others project their chaos onto you. This is the balance that transforms your life. When you learn to lead not from fear or force, but from grace. Grace is the mark of the true queen. It's not something you perform. It's something you embody. It shows up in how you speak to yourself when no one's listening, in how you handle disappointment without bitterness, in how you choose compassion without letting people take advantage of you. Grace is strength under control. It is power that does not need to prove itself. As you grow into this energy, you realize that the most powerful thing you can do is simply be, to walk in your authenticity, to honor your emotions without being ruled by them, to express your truth without aggression or apology. The more you accept your humanity, your flaws, your softness, your strength, the more effortlessly your crown begins to shine. There will always be moments that test this balance, moments when your softness feels like a liability, when your strength feels like isolation. But remember, every test is an invitation to deepen your wisdom, to respond instead of react, to listen instead of attack, to understand that not everything needs your energy, not everyone deserves your access, and not every battle is worth fighting. You will lose people as you rise. That's part of the ascension. Not because you are better than them, but because you are becoming more aligned with peace. And peace cannot coexist with chaos. You are learning to honor yourself without guilt. You are learning that walking away from what drains you is not rejection, it's redirection. And as you continue to evolve, you'll begin to notice that the world around you softens too. The more you operate from balance, the more life mirrors that back. You attract relationships that flow instead of force, opportunities that match your energy instead of depleting it. Because everything external is an echo of the internal. When your inner world is in harmony, your outer world aligns with ease. So, look within. Ask yourself, am I living in balance or am I living in reaction? Am I guarding my peace or am I guarding my pain? Am I allowing my softness to flow? Or am I hiding it behind walls of survival? These questions are sacred. They call you home, because home isn't a place, it's a state of being. It's that calm awareness where you are no longer pretending to be anyone else. It's where you rest in your truth, knowing that you are whole, even when the world doesn't reflect it back to you. When you find that inner home, you no longer chase belonging. You become it. You no longer seek love. You radiate it. You no longer search for strength. You embody it. The journey of remembering your worth, embracing solitude, and balancing softness with strength all leads to this one sacred truth. Peace is your power, And when you move from that peace, you move differently. You speak differently. You love differently. You no longer fight to be seen. You simply shine. You no longer chase. You attract. You no longer beg for respect. You command it effortlessly, because your energy carries the quiet authority of someone who has made peace with her reflection. That is the beauty of the woman who remembers who she is. She no longer hides her light out of fear. It might blind others. She no longer silences her heart to make others feel comfortable. She moves with rhythm, grace, and truth. Not because life has been kind, but because she has learned to be kind to herself. And when you finally arrive at that place, where your worth is not a question but a knowing, where your solitude is not isolation but sanctuary, where your strength and softness dance in harmony, that is when you have truly returned to your throne, not a throne made of pride or perfection, but one built on peace, a peace so radiant, so deep, that no storm can unseat it. Because once you've found yourself, once you've loved yourself back to wholeness, the world can no longer take from you what you have already claimed within. That is the quiet majesty of a woman who has remembered her worth, embraced her stillness, and mastered the art of her balance. She doesn't need to be told she's a queen. She knows, and she moves like it, not in noise, but in knowing, not in armor, but in grace, not in fear, but in divine peace. There comes a moment when you stop asking the world for permission to be yourself, when you stop waiting for applause, for validation, for someone to tell you that you are enough. There comes a moment when you realize that your silence has been mistaken for weakness, when in truth, it was simply the sound of your soul gathering strength. It is in that stillness that the shift begins, the quiet revolution within you, when the woman who once tried to shrink herself to fit into smaller spaces suddenly remembers. She was born to expand. You see, there's something extraordinary about the woman who has met her own reflection, not just in the mirror, but in the depths of her disappointments. The woman who has been rejected, betrayed, and misunderstood, yet still refuses to turn bitter. She doesn't just survive the fire, she learns to use its light. She no longer tries to prove her worth to people who cannot see it, because she has finally learned to see it for herself. And that changes everything. When you begin to honor your own presence, the world begins to shift around you, not because people suddenly become better, but because your energy no longer welcomes what doesn't align with peace. The same words that once wounded, you lose their sharpness. The same people who once confused you lose their power. You move differently, slower, calmer, deeper, because you no longer chase what runs. You attract what matches your rhythm. This is the beauty of awakening, realizing that your power was never in control, but in alignment. Control demands, alignment allows. Control comes from fear, alignment comes from trust. And when you trust yourself, when you learn to flow rather than fight, something miraculous happens. The chaos outside can no longer disturb the calm within, but this inner peace is not found by denying your pain. It's found by honoring it. Too many people rush to heal as if wholeness is a destination rather than a devotion. But healing asks for presence, not perfection. It asks you to sit with the version of yourself that you've spent years avoiding. The part that still aches, the part that still fears, the part that still remembers. It asks you to look her in the eye and whisper, "You are safe now." Because the truth is, nothing outside of you can complete what's broken within you. No relationship, no success, no praise. Only self-acceptance can fill that space. When you finally embrace your scars as chapters of your becoming, they stop being reminders of pain and start becoming symbols of power. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start understanding, "Because me." Because you were built for it. Because strength can't exist without struggle, and wisdom cannot grow in comfort. And yet so many resist the silence where this wisdom is born. We fear the stillness because it shows us the truth, that the noise we cling to is often a distraction from our emptiness. But the silence isn't your enemy, it's your mirror. It reflects everything you've been running from and everything you've been searching for. When you learn to listen, the silence teaches you what the world never could, how to hear your own voice again. That voice, the quiet whisper inside your chest, it's not just thoughts, it's guidance. It's the truth before the world told you who you should be. It's the child in you who once believed she could do anything before fear became her teacher. And when you begin to follow that voice again, not the voice of insecurity, not the echo of comparison, but the gentle hum of intuition, life begins to unfold with grace. You stop chasing closure from people who are never capable of giving it. You stop waiting for apologies that may never come, because you begin to understand. Closure isn't something you receive, it's something you decide. It's the moment you choose to stop reopening a wound just to prove it hurt. It's the courage to say, I forgive you, not because you deserve peace, but because I do. And in that surrender, a new kind of power rises. Not loud, not forceful, but still and sacred. The kind of power that doesn't need to be seen to be felt. It's in the way you walk away without anger, the way you smile without pretending, the way you love again. Not because you've forgotten, but because you've healed. There's a strength in gentleness that the world often misunderstands. People confuse calmness with passivity, when in truth, it's the ultimate expression of control. To remain soft in a world that has tried to harden you, that's power. To keep your heart open after being broken, that's mastery. To choose peace, not because life is easy, but because you refuse to let chaos make you cruel, that's grace. And grace is what carries you through the transitions. Those quiet, uncertain seasons when you've outgrown who you were, but haven't yet stepped into who you're becoming. In those moments, the mind screams for answers, but the soul whispers, wait, wait. Because transformation doesn't happen in clarity. It happens in surrender. It happens in the silence between endings and beginnings, where everything you thought you lost is slowly being rearranged to serve who you're meant to be. So when life begins to unravel, don't rush to fix it. Let it fall apart. Let it dismantle what was never stable. Let it expose what was never true. Because breakdowns are often breakthroughs in disguise. What you call the end might just be your becoming. And as you rise from the ashes of what once was, something inside you begins to shift. You stop being addicted to the past version of yourself that survived and start creating the version that thrives. You begin to notice that you no longer seek the same conversations, the same validations, the same rooms. It's not pride, it's alignment. You're no longer shrinking to be accepted. You're expanding to be seen. There's something magnetic about a woman who has remembered her worth. She doesn't compete, she attracts. She doesn't beg, she receives. She doesn't prove, she simply is. Her energy speaks before her words do. Her presence becomes her statement. Because when a woman returns to herself, the world must adjust. And yet, even in this newfound strength, she remains soft. Because true confidence doesn't need to shout. It simply glows. It's the light that no darkness can extinguish, the calm that no storm can disturb. It's knowing that you can be both powerful and peaceful, both assertive and kind, both warrior and healer, all at once. The balance between these opposites is where your true essence lives. It's not about being perfect, it's about being whole. It's the art of being grounded yet open, strong yet surrendered. When you can stand in that balance, life stops being a battle and becomes a dance. You stop trying to force things to happen and start allowing them to unfold. And that's when everything begins to make sense. Not because the world changes, but because you do. You stop searching for meaning outside of yourself and begin to realize that the kingdom you've been seeking has always been within. You were never meant to be rescued. You were meant to rise. You were never meant to chase crowns, you were meant to wear one. So, if you've forgotten who you are, pause, breathe. Place your hand over your heart. Feel that rhythm, steady, eternal, unwavering. That's your reminder. That's your power. Everything you need has been there all along. And when you finally embrace that truth, not just as an idea, but as a lived reality, your world begins to move differently. You no longer walk to prove yourself. You walk to embody yourself. You walk as the woman who remembers, who stands tall, not because she has never fallen, but because she rose after every fall and decided to keep walking anyway. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are simply becoming. And in that becoming, you are reclaiming every piece of yourself that you once gave away. To fear, to doubt, to people who could not see your worth. You are gathering your power, your peace, your presence. You are remembering the truth that has always been waiting for you to return. You are not trying to be a queen. You are remembering that you already are one. There's a sacred quiet that arrives when you finally stop begging to be understood, when you stop exhausting yourself, trying to explain your soul to those who were never meant to comprehend its depth. You begin to see that silence is not defeat, it's discernment. There's a wisdom that grows in the soil of stillness, a strength that only comes when you stop fighting for what was never aligned with your peace. And in that silence, something remarkable begins to happen. Your energy shifts. You start to move differently, speak differently, even breathe differently. You no longer rush to respond, to defend, to prove. You begin to understand that not every truth needs to be spoken aloud to be powerful. Some truths are meant to be lived quietly, felt deeply, and known only by you. The moment you stop explaining yourself to the wrong people, your power returns to you. That power is not loud. It hums softly in your bones. It's not about dominance or control. It's about remembering your own rhythm, because so many lose themselves trying to match the frequency of others. They dilute their brilliance to keep the peace, dim their fire to make others comfortable. But there comes a time when your soul refuses to be muted any longer. A time when you realize that playing small does not protect you. It imprisons you. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to embody something so authentic, so alive, that it unsettles those still pretending. The world doesn't need another imitation. It needs your truth. And that truth is messy, raw, beautiful, and ever-changing. It doesn't fit neatly into expectations. It doesn't always please others, but it liberates you. And that liberation begins when you start trusting your own intuition more than the opinions of others. Because intuition is the whisper of your higher self, the voice that already knows where you're meant to go. Yet so often, we silence it, we second-guess it, we look for confirmation outside of ourselves because we fear the weight of our own knowing. But your intuition was never meant to be debated, it was meant to be followed. It will rarely shout, it often speaks in subtle nudges, unease in your body when something isn't right, a sudden calm when you're aligned, an inner resistance that warns you when you're about to betray yourself. The more you listen, the clearer it becomes. The more you honor it, the louder it sings. And the day you choose to follow that voice above all others, that's the day your life begins to align with its true purpose. Because intuition doesn't just lead you to what you want. It leads you to what you need. It will pull you away from comfort to teach you courage. It will remove what no longer serves your growth, even when it hurts. It will dismantle illusions you once clung to, not to punish you, but to prepare you. It leads not through fear, but through faith. Faith that what is meant for you will recognize you, even in silence. And when you begin to move from that place of quiet confidence, people feel it. You no longer beg for opportunities, you attract them. You no longer chase love, you radiate it. You no longer fear loss. You trust that what leaves was never yours to begin with. Because a woman anchored in her intuition is unshakable. She has tasted the clarity that comes from listening inward, and no external noise can drown it out. But this deep connection to yourself does not make you immune to pain. In fact, it makes you more sensitive to it. When you awaken, you feel everything more: the grief, the longing, the beauty. You notice energies that once passed you by. You become aware of what drains you and what nourishes you. And this awareness is both a gift and a challenge. Because once you see, you cannot unsee. Once you know, you cannot unknow. Awakening doesn't make life easier, it makes it untruer. You begin to walk through the world without illusions, without masks. You see people as they are, not as you wish them to be. And sometimes that clarity hurts. You see how often people speak from their wounds, not their wisdom. How many act from fear, not love. How many pretend to be strong when they are simply tired. But this awareness is not meant to harden you. It's meant to soften you, because real strength is not in building walls. It's in keeping your heart open, even when the world gives you reasons to close it. Real strength is in choosing empathy when anger feels easier. It's in saying, I understand, instead of I'm done. But it's also in knowing when to walk away without guilt, to love without losing yourself, to forgive without allowing access. This balance between compassion and boundaries is the essence of your evolution. You see, boundaries are not barriers. They're gates that guard your peace. They're not meant to isolate you, but to honor your energy. You cannot serve from an empty vessel, nor can you heal in the same environment that made you sick. There's a sacred responsibility in learning where your energy ends and another's begins. And when you master this, you begin to live with intention instead of reaction. When you stop trying to save everyone, you start saving yourself. And in doing so, you show others how to rise, because your peace becomes a mirror for others to find their own. You stop trying to control outcomes, realizing that peace is not found in predictability, but in trust. The more you surrender, the more the universe aligns in your favor. Not because life gets easier, but because you stop resisting what is. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson of all. To stop fighting life and start flowing with it. To stop seeing endings as failures and start recognizing them as redirections. To stop fearing change and start honoring it as the language of growth. Change is not the enemy, it's the evidence that you're still alive, still becoming, still in motion. Every ending, every heartbreak, every closed door, it's all part of your refinement. Life is not punishing you, it's polishing you. Every disappointment is carving you into someone stronger, wiser, more compassionate. The fire that once burned you is now the same fire that lights your path. The pain that once silenced you is now the same pain that fuels your purpose. You begin to realize that every loss carried a gift, even if it came wrapped in grief. That the people who walked away were simply clearing space for those who could walk beside you. That the things that didn't work out weren't failures, they were divine protection. You were never being abandoned, you were being redirected. And as you begin to trust this unfolding, something shifts inside you. You stop rushing, you stop forcing, you stop trying to control every outcome. Instead, you learn to breathe between the moments, to find meaning in the pauses, to see beauty in the waiting. You realize that becoming doesn't happen in grand leaps, but in quiet choices. Every day choosing faith over fear, peace over panic, alignment over approval. And with each choice, you rise a little higher, not above others, but within yourself. You rise into your divine rhythm where nothing is missing and everything is meaningful. You stop seeing yourself as broken and start recognizing yourself as becoming. This is the rebirth that happens when you return to yourself. It's not loud, it's not dramatic. It's subtle, sacred, and strong. You start laughing again, not because everything is perfect, but because you finally understand that perfection was never the point. You start resting, not because you're lazy, but because you've realized that peace is productive. You start loving yourself not as a reward, but as a responsibility. And in this rebirth, you no longer crave recognition. You crave alignment. You no longer seek validation. You seek peace. You no longer chase what's meant to find you. You become what you were meant to be all along, whole, grounded, radiant, real. There is no finish line in this journey, only deeper layers of awakening. Each season of your life will invite you to shed another illusion, to release another fear, to reclaim another piece of your power. And each time you do, you'll find that you are not changing into someone new. You are returning to someone ancient. The woman beneath the noise, the soul beneath the survival, the queen beneath the crown. And as you walk this path with grace, you'll notice that your energy becomes your language. You'll speak less but mean more. You'll move slower but arrive fuller. You'll love deeper but with greater wisdom. You'll start to live not as a reaction to the world, but as a reflection of the divine within you. So when the storms come, and they will, stand tall. Remember who you are, not the titles you've earned or the roles you play, but the essence that cannot be shaken. You are not what happened to you. You are what rose from it. You are not defined by the pain that broke you, but by the power that rebuilt you. And when you finally understand this, life stops being something to survive. It becomes something sacred to live. You begin to walk with a quiet authority, knowing that you are guided, protected, and destined for more. You begin to wear your peace like armor, your faith like light, your presence like a crown. You are not a woman trying to become powerful. You are power, learning to remember herself. There comes a point in every woman's journey when she stops trying to be understood and simply becomes undeniable, when she no longer needs to prove her light because it speaks for itself. That's when life begins to take on a different texture, softer, slower, yet somehow more powerful. The chaos outside doesn't shake her spirit anymore because she's found the kingdom within, and from that place of quiet sovereignty, she begins to understand something profound. Peace was never something to chase, it was something to protect. You begin to realize that protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's sacred. You stop saying yes just to keep the harmony, because you finally understand that false peace is just delayed chaos. You start to feel it in your bones when something is not right for you, not because it's bad, but because it doesn't match your energy anymore. And that's how you know you've evolved. What once entertained you now drains you. What once felt urgent now feels unworthy of your attention. There's a stillness that grows when you no longer rush to fix, to please, to prove. When you stop handing your emotional keys to people who drive recklessly through your spirit. Protecting your peace is not about isolation, it's about alignment. It's choosing to surround yourself with people who nourish your calm instead of provoking your chaos. It's recognizing that you are allowed to outgrow environments that keep you small, and that solitude is not punishment, but preparation. When you learn to protect your peace, you begin to walk differently through the world. You no longer react to every noise, you respond only to what matters. You no longer run after every opportunity, you discern which ones carry purpose. You no longer accept every form of attention, you recognize that energy is an exchange. And not every hand that reaches for you deserves to hold you. It takes wisdom to know when to stay, but it takes power to know when to go. And that power doesn't roar, it whispers. It says, I love you, but I love me too. It says, I wish you well, but I won't lose myself trying to keep you. That's the maturity peace brings. The ability to love without attachment, to give without depletion, and to walk away without bitterness. And when you finally master the art of peace, you realize something even deeper. Your power was never meant to come from control. It was meant to flow from trust. The more you try to hold things tightly, the more they slip through your fingers. But when you learn to open your palms, to trust that what's meant for you cannot miss you, the entire energy of your life begins to shift. You stop grasping, you start receiving, you stop fearing endings, because you understand that every ending is just an invisible beginning. It's in this surrender that the woman truly becomes powerful. Because surrender is not weakness, it's alignment. It's the wisdom to know that forcing is the language of fear, but allowing is the dialect of faith. Surrender doesn't mean giving up, it means giving in, not to defeat, but to destiny. It means trusting the timing of your own transformation. Even when the in-between feels unbearable. The in-between, that silent stretch between what was and what's yet to come, is where most people give up. They mistake stillness for stagnation. They believe that because nothing is moving, nothing is happening. But the truth is, the deepest transformations always happen underground. Seeds don't bloom in the sunlight. They bloom after darkness has done its work. And that's what surrender really is. It's the courage to let life unfold without trying to rush the rhythm. It's the willingness to sit in uncertainty, knowing that divine timing is never delayed, only deliberate. You learn that peace doesn't come from having control. It comes from releasing it. It comes from trusting that even when you cannot see the path, you can feel the pull. In surrender, there's a softening, a loosening of the grip, a return to breath. You start to feel yourself again, not as someone striving to reach the next destination, but as someone who finally understands that she is the destination. You are not walking toward peace. You are walking as peace. You are not searching for love. You are returning to the place within that has never stopped radiating it. And as you surrender, something miraculous happens. Your energy becomes magnetic. The very things you once chased begin to find their way to you. The love that once eluded you now recognizes your frequency. The opportunities that once ignored you now align effortlessly. Why? Because you have become a match to the life you were always meant to live. You've stopped operating from fear. Fear of being alone, fear of being forgotten, fear of being not enough, and started moving from faith. But faith too is not a thought. It's an embodiment. Faith is not about believing everything will go your way. It's about knowing that even if it doesn't, you will still find your way. It's walking through the fire and trusting that you won't be burned, only refined. It's saying, I may not see it yet, but I know it's already working for me. Faith is not loud, it's steady, it's the quiet conviction that whispers, I'm safe, even when the world shakes. And that's where true power lives. Not in resistance, but in rootedness. The kind of rootedness that doesn't panic when the storm arrives. Because it knows storms don't destroy the tree. They deepen its roots. Every trial, every heartbreak, every season of uncertainty has been shaping you into someone who no longer reacts from fear, but responds from faith. Faith is what allows you to keep walking when nothing makes sense. It's what reminds you that the delay is not denial. It's development. That rejection was not punishment. It was protection. That the closed door wasn't the end. It was redirection. Everything that has left your life created space for something that will fit better, flow easier, last longer. And as this realization deepens, you begin to see that faith is not just for the big moments, it's for the small ones too. It's in the morning when you wake up uncertain, but decide to smile anyway. It's in the stillness when you pray not for outcomes, but for strength. It's in the moments when you don't know how, but you choose to trust that you will. You start to see that every experience, the joyful, the painful, the confusing, was never random. It was sacred choreography. Life has always been whispering to you, through both blessings and burdens, through both miracles and messes. Nothing was wasted. Even the heartbreak that broke you was also the hammer that shaped you. So now, you walk differently. You carry yourself not with arrogance, but with assurance, not with pride, but with presence. You don't need to announce your worth, you embody it. You no longer need to shout to be heard, your silence speaks volumes. Because your confidence no longer comes from what you have, it comes from who you've become. And who you've become is a woman of depth, a woman who doesn't seek the spotlight because she is the light, a woman who doesn't fear solitude because she's met her own soul and found it beautiful, a woman who doesn't chase love because she's realized that love, in its truest form, can only meet her when she's already whole. The beauty of this evolution is that it doesn't make you untouchable, it makes you unshakable. You still feel, you still care, you still love, but you no longer lose yourself in the process. You've learned the sacred art of being full yet open, soft yet strong, loving yet discerning. You are not hard, you are holy, you are not guarded, you are guided, and that guidance, that quiet inner compass, keeps leading you toward your higher self. It keeps reminding you that every challenge is not a setback, but a setup. Every fall is not a failure, but a foundation. Every ending is not loss, but liberation. The woman who understands this no longer walks with fear. She walks with flow. Flow is what happens when faith and surrender meet. It's the state where effort becomes effortless, because you are no longer working against the current. You're moving with it. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? You stop trying to make things perfect and start learning to make peace with imperfection. That's the secret of true mastery. Not controlling life, but cooperating with it. Not predicting every wave, but learning how to surf. Flow means you're no longer fighting for your place. You're becoming it. You're no longer proving your worth. You're embodying it. And as you live in that state of flow, life becomes lighter. You begin to trust your timing, your path, your process. You stop rushing the moments because you finally understand. The woman you're becoming cannot be rushed. She blooms on divine time. So breathe. Rest in the knowing that you are exactly where you need to be. Every lesson, every heartbreak, every delay has been guiding you home to yourself. You have walked through the fire and found your own light. You have fallen in love with the sound of your own peace. You have remembered the rhythm of your own soul. You are not waiting to become powerful. You already are. You are not chasing alignment. You are it, and you are not searching for your crown. You have simply remembered that it was never lost, only forgotten. Now wear it not as a symbol of superiority, but of sovereignty. Not as a decoration, but as a declaration that you are whole, that you are ready, and that your reign begins the moment you choose to live in peace, move with faith, and flow with grace. There comes a moment in every woman's life when silence feels heavier than noise, when pretending becomes exhausting, and the soul whispers, enough, enough of shrinking to fit into spaces that were never built for your fullness, enough of trying to convince others of your worth, when your very breath was always proof of it. Enough of waiting to be chosen when you were born, already crowned. And in that sacred moment of exhaustion, something ancient stirs, not weakness, but awakening. Because sometimes your breaking point is your becoming point. It is not rebellion that makes you walk away from what no longer aligns with your peace. It is wisdom. Wisdom that recognizes that the kingdom within you cannot thrive in the shadow of smallness. For too long, you may have mistaken survival for strength, holding on to broken things, keeping peace by silencing your own truth, convincing yourself that endurance equals love. But true strength is not in holding on. It is in the grace to let go, with dignity, with peace, and with quiet certainty that your worth is not tied to what stayed or what left. Letting go is not the ending of your story. It is the clearing of the ground for new life to bloom. The woman who chooses herself is not selfish, she is sacred. Because when you honor your boundaries, when you say no to what drains your light, you make space for your soul to breathe again. You begin to remember that your softness is not weakness. It is sacred soil. It is where compassion grows, where empathy is born, where divine love takes root, and the world needs that softness. Not the kind that is easily broken, but the kind that bends with wisdom and still stands. There is a difference between being strong and being hardened. To be strong is to remain open in a world that tried to close you, to still love, still give, still hope. Even when life has shown you its storms, it takes power to stay gentle. Because gentleness is not the absence of fire, it is fire under control. It is the Queen's grace, steady, unshaken, unbothered by chaos, yet capable of transforming it with one calm glance. The kind of strength that doesn't roar but radiates. The kind that doesn't fight for attention, but commands it through presence. And when you finally find that presence within yourself, that still, unshakable center, the way you move through life changes. You stop reacting to noise, because your peace has become your priority. You stop explaining your worth, because you've outgrown validation. You stop chasing connection, because you've learned that what is meant for you will recognize your frequency. You no longer fear being misunderstood, because you've understood yourself deeply. This is what it means to reclaim your crown, not to dominate, not to prove, but to embody. A queen doesn't announce her power, she is her power. Her silence speaks, her energy teaches, her alignment leads. You don't need to shout your value into rooms where your spirit is already known. The right spaces will recognize your energy before your words ever reach them. Yet, this remembrance does not come easily. It comes through the wilderness, through heartbreak, loss, loneliness, and the nights where your tears feel like prayers. It comes through the seasons when God removes every illusion you clung to, so that you may finally see yourself without distortion. The loneliness you feel is not punishment. It is purification. It is the refining of gold in the fire of your own becoming. And in that fire, something magnificent happens. You begin to see yourself as whole, not because life is perfect, but because you are no longer fragmented by approval, or fear, or attachment. You realize that peace is not found in control, but in surrender. You stop begging people to see your worth, and instead you begin to live like you already know it. You walk slower, you breathe deeper, you speak less but with more meaning. You love yourself the way you always wished someone else would. When you embody that love, your energy changes. You become magnetic, not because of appearance, but because of alignment. People feel your peace before they hear your voice. They sense the depth in your silence, the strength in your calm. This is what divine femininity looks like. Not performing, not pleasing, but being grounded, being guided, being enough. Don't mistake peace for passivity. The queen's peace is not without power. It simply doesn't waste it. It's selective, intentional, directed only toward what feeds her purpose. She knows when to speak and when to stay silent. She knows that every reaction is a transaction, and she no longer spends her energy on what does not grow her. This is the evolution. When you stop living for applause and start living from authenticity, when you realize that not everyone deserves access to your energy, that your peace, your love, your time, your body, these are sacred offerings. Not everyone is prepared to honor them. And so you stop chasing, stop begging, stop bending. You simply stand rooted, radiant, unapologetic. It's a quiet kind of power, one that makes the world stop and pay attention without you ever demanding it. Because real queens don't compete, they cultivate. They don't chase thrones, they build tables. They don't seek crowns, they remember they were born with them. And when a woman remembers, when she truly remembers, everything around her begins to shift. The relationships that drain her begin to dissolve. The spaces that once felt suffocating start to lose their hold. Even the way she walks changes, lighter, freer, more deliberate. Because when a woman remembers her worth, the universe rearranges itself to match her frequency. Life starts meeting her at the level of her belief. And in that remembrance, forgiveness begins to bloom. Not the kind that excuses wrongdoing, but the kind that releases the soul from its own chains. You forgive not because they deserve peace, but because you do. Because carrying anger poisons the vessel it lives in. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is reclaiming your freedom. It is whispering to your heart, you are safe now. You can let go. You begin to see that every wound was an initiation, every loss a lesson, every delay divine. Nothing was wasted. Not a single tear, not a single heartbreak. Each one was a teacher. And perhaps that's what grace really is. The ability to look back at your life, not with bitterness, but with understanding. To say, thank you, even to the pain, because it woke you up to your strength. You realize that the goal was never to become someone else, but to remember who you were before the world told you to shrink. You are not your mistakes. You are not your past. You are not even your pain. You are the consciousness behind it all. The witness, the awareness, the soul that keeps rising, no matter how many times it's been knocked down. And this is where power and peace meet, in remembrance, when you no longer need to prove anything, because your being itself becomes proof. You begin to move differently, speak differently, choose differently. You guard your energy like a sacred flame, knowing it's the light that guides your path forward. Then slowly the need to be understood fades. The urge to control outcomes softens. You realize that your only task is alignment, to walk in truth, to live in love, to honor your spirit. Everything else will unfold as it must. You stop fearing endings because you've learned they are simply beginnings in disguise. You stop chasing certainty because you trust your own rhythm. You start dancing again, not to impress, but to express. You laugh, you rest, you breathe, and you allow yourself to simply be. And when others look at you and wonder what changed, they won't understand that it wasn't an event. It was an awakening, a quiet, steady remembrance of power that was always yours. You stopped living small. You stopped apologizing for existing. You stopped waiting for permission to shine. You started reigning, not with arrogance, but with awareness. This is what it means to rise. Not higher, but deeper. Not louder, but truer. The Queen's throne is not made of gold, it is made of peace. Her crown is not on her head, it's in her spirit. And when she walks in that truth, the world doesn't just see her, it feels her. Because once a woman remembers her worth, there is nothing left to chase. There is only the quiet majesty of being, whole, radiant, and free. And so, in the quiet after all the striving, there comes a moment when you no longer seek to prove, to earn, or to fight for what was already yours. The crown you spent years searching for was never lost. It was simply waiting for you to remember where you placed it. You realize that queendom is not about perfection, but presence. Not about ruling others, but mastering yourself. You see now that power doesn't always roar, sometimes it whispers. It moves through your stillness, it speaks through your patience, it radiates through your peace. You no longer confuse gentleness with weakness, or solitude with lack. You begin to understand that everything you thought you lost was leading you back to yourself, to the woman who walks through fire and emerges glowing, softer yet stronger than before. Life stops feeling like something to conquer and begins to feel like something sacred to experience. You forgive, not because you've forgotten, but because you're finally free. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and begin to whisper, "It happened for me, so that I could remember who I am." The world may still test you, but now you meet its storms with calm eyes. You know that what is truly yours cannot be taken, and what leaves only makes room for what's aligned. You don't chase light anymore. You are the light. You don't seek validation. You embody truth. You don't wait for destiny. You walk in it. And as you stand, whole, unshaken, radiant, you understand what it truly means to be a queen. It was never about the throne, the crown, or the applause. It was always about remembering the power within your silence, the grace in your heart, and the divinity in your becoming. You've come home, not to a place, not to a person, but to yourself. And in that sacred return, you are finally free.